Good morning, and welcome to the alternative universe of Philly Emerging Technologies for the Enterprise Online. My name is Tracy Welson-Rossman, Chief Marketing Officer of Chariot Solutions. First and foremost, I hope that you and your families are healthy, well, and safe. Philly ETE is in its 14th year, and after taking a year off in 2018, we thought it would be smooth sailing as we reestablish our footing in 2019. Little did we know. We did our normal planning until 45 days ago when we knew we had to make a decision to cancel completely or to go virtual. Chariot Solutions is a software consulting firm in the Philadelphia region. We've been working with all types of businesses, helping them solve business challenges with technology for close to 18 years. Sharing knowledge has been part of who we are from the start of the company. And although we knew it would not be easy, who better to take a conference online than a tech company? Normally I say my thank yous towards the end of my remarks, but due to the amount of work, the thank yous need to start sooner. First, a huge thank you to my co-chair, Mark Schvetz. Next, to Ken Rimple and Becca Redford for logistics and organizing our tech tools and AV plans. This was a team effort to lift and shift. Thanks to the committee for believing in what we were doing and giving us the advice that we needed to get this going. Next, to our speakers. I know that they would prefer to be on the Philadelphia stage right now, but they've been with us every step of the way through this transition. There have been incessant emails, practice sessions, and adjustments to their talks for this new format. Their dedication and willingness to be part of this experiment is why this next 2 days will be a success and hopefully special. To our sponsors, Comcast, Elsevier, Pinnacle 21, Lutron, and Element 84 for helping us defray some of the costs of taking this online. There's not the usual swag and tables to visit, but they understood the importance of keeping this conference going. Last, I wanted to thank you, the audience. There are over 400 of us registered for today. Most of you have moved over from the live event. I expect and know there's going to be some hiccups and that the next 2 days won't exactly be perfect. Seeing each other in person and reconnecting, meeting the speakers and asking them questions face-to-face, having interesting conversations easily. These are not part of this year's ETE, and there are no cheesesteaks and pretzels, but you've chosen to be with us. The team at Chariot appreciates you trusting us with this experience. Challenge aside, Chariot believes learning together is a great way to connect our developer community. And right now, connections are more important than we may have realized in the past. When we first started planning these talks in August, there really was no clear theme. But I think one did develop. Technology as a solution provider. Yes, we have talks about the tools that make the software work, but the heart of what we do is create solutions. Post-COVID-19, software and other technology will be creating even more solutions to many of the challenges which were exposed during this time, and software and tech will be part of the ideas born. It's also not lost on me that our keynotes for this ETE are about the humanizing of software. It's also not lost on me either how important technology has been to keeping us connected during this time of isolation and alone together. So a little housekeeping. Our hashtag is a little different this year. It's hashtag PhillyETE Online. If you received your t-shirt, please take a photo and tag us on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, or LinkedIn. And please share out the information that you are learning. Did you sign into our Slack channel? It is where all the cool kids are going to be hanging out. Seriously, if you have not, go to chariotsolutions.com/access. The instructions on getting onto Slack will be there. Slack has a hallway channel, channel for each room, and a support channel. If you are having any issues, you will need help with around the conference. Also, check out our channel with ideas for charitable giving. Our schedule is going to be in a couple of places. Of course, it's in the portal in listing order, but if you like the grid view, if you go to the front page of the website of the portal, there'll be a link to a Google Doc, which will have it in grid formula. And hey, we're gonna try a happy hour with 400 people because we're just into this mood right now. There will be breakout rooms by topic later, so stay tuned for those links. Sorry that you have to provide your own beer or beverage of your choice this year, but hopefully it'll be something locally brewed. Have a great 2 days. Thanks for being with us. Thanks for your patience, your flexibility, and your goodwill. And now to Mark Schvetz.
All right, guys, thank you so much. My name is Mark Schvetz, and I'm a developer at Chariot Solutions. It's so great to be here with you guys and have the opportunity to put on this conference despite us all not being able to be together. ETE is one of the highlights of my year, and I just want to thank all of you, our attendees, our speakers, and our sponsors for being here and making this conference possible. Now, as Tracy mentioned, all the cool kids are on Slack. I did post a join link inside the chat for the Zoom. And if you guys have any questions for Nancy, please type them into the Room A channel. If you like the question that somebody typed, upvote it, put a little kitten on it or whatever, and then the most popular questions I will ask at the end after the talk is over. So when we asked Nancy to speak for us, we didn't know how pertinent her talk was going to be. It's going to talk about how technology is bringing us all together. And despite all of us being annoyed at times of it distracting us, without it, we wouldn't be able to meet like this. So I'm very thankful today for having the technology and have this conference with all of you. Thank you, Nancy.
Good morning, everybody. I hope everyone has their cup of coffee ready to go. Let me screen share for a second. Okay. Well, good morning, everybody. My name is Nancy Coblenz. I'm the CEO of Rebel Role Model, and I'm coming to you live from Dallas, Texas. I love how in technology we can be all over the world, especially for a digital conference like this, and all be connected together all at the same time. So today, I'm going to be speaking about how robots, augmented, and virtual reality will make us human again. And as Tracy and Mark have said before, this is quite a relevant topic, especially with what we're experiencing right now. So again, my name is Nancy Coblenz. I'm the CEO of Rebel Role Model. We are a marketing and digital transformation agency here in Dallas, Texas. We've worked with quite a few companies working on IoT. Should I use all the acronyms? IoT, AI, AR, VR, XR, all the R's, and really focusing now, especially with the corporations that are experiencing going remote, how to effectively and efficiently transform their workforce to have a blended type of work-life balance completely on the digital frontier. So I wanted to start and think, if we were a year ago today, could we imagine a world where the streets were empty, but the world became closer? The people that we know now, we'd be communicating digitally like we are. However, we'd be seeking that emotional connection between friends and family, coworkers, and really wanting to seek out more of that humanistic experience. And realistically, this is what we're experiencing right now. Kids are at home on their iPads and on their computers and phones, going to school in their rooms, as we are all going to work online like we are now on Zoom or WebEx or Skype or some sort of other management system. And this is our reality for the foreseeable future. And what I think is quite appropriate is that we're now in a time historically that we have technology to support and supplement what we are going through right now. You know, in the past, there's been massive epidemics and viruses that have gone around the world, and economic crashes, and yet there was nothing that can unify the world and keep things going as it is today due to the fact of technology. So I wanted to kind of get your mind going and thinking, what do you think is our greatest epidemic that we have been experiencing in the technological era that we're in? A lot of people come up with certain ideas of if it is a virus that's potentially growing like this, is it an economic downturn? Is it crime rates? So what do you think is the greatest epidemic we're going through? And it's actually loneliness. Due to all the technology that we've been using and have been used to using on a daily basis, especially with mobile, that loneliness is actually the #1 killer in our country due to the fact that we have become not as agile and not as mobile as we would be physically with our bodies. And so the advent of mobile has created us to be stuck to our screens with just one dimension for us to actually communicate and connect with a lot of people. So the advent of mobile has kind of disassociated and disconnected us. However, with something that we're experiencing now with COVID-19, the technologies, especially around remote telecommunications like we are now, is actually bringing us back together. And this is just the beginning to see how we will be able to connect more on a human level. So this is really our new normal now. There we go. What we're looking at right now is that digital transformation before COVID-19 was really a luxury. If you asked a corporation to invest in some initiatives to digitally transform, whether it's as simple as creating a new CRM that would make their sales force more efficient, to a full-on IoT integrated hardware system to track every single employee and everything that they're doing from the time that they wake up to the time they go to sleep, about 50% of companies would agree that technology is needed to be integrated into their daily occurrences. However, about 10% would actually go forward and invest that money and try to implement those initiatives. Today, we have 100% of companies that are trying to be as transformative technologically as possible due to COVID-19. And like I said before, this is something that is unprecedented, that we can all as a world and a community come together and try to support one another through technology. In the future, once things kind of go back to new normal, as I say, there will be a type of hybrid lifestyle between working at an office and working at home. One of the interesting things about this is that we have integrated our family and our pets and our regular life into our work, which is really fun and interesting in a sense that, you know, a lot of corporations and companies in the past would try to kind of segregate between work life and home life and try to separate the two. But what's the cool thing about what we're going through right now is there's more of that humanistic experience that, hey, you know what, we have kids, we have another life that we live as well besides work, and to integrate the two and to acknowledge the two is going to move forward into a new hybridized type of work-life balance, which I think is really cool. The other thing too is, you know, there's a lot to say about the digital transformation, specifically with the labor workforce. Those that once were more blue-collar workers now are going to be upskilled and to be tech trained and focus on their own soft skills, which will enable them to have greater skill sets than they did before due to technology and advances. The other thing too is evolved leadership. The leadership that we have now, the executives that we have now, and the management style that we have now is really truly based on interpersonal communication, you know, in an office or being one-on-one or within a group physically. There is going to be a learning curve with management coming up within the next few years truly trying to figure out how can I connect with my peers and with my team virtually or not within the same room. So there's going to be a lot of interesting and new techniques that'll occur just specifically on the management and leadership side to be able to be more efficient and to connect emotionally through a technology kind of piece like this. The next thing is that productivity will be valued more than hours spent at a desk. I think we're seeing that now. That do I necessarily get more done by being at a desk or in an office for 8 hours a day versus being at home, spending 4 hours on the task at hand, not being bothered, being specifically focused on what I need to get done and all my KPIs, and be able to get things done and move on. I think this is going to shift a whole lot in the idea and the structure of productivity, work-life balance, and task-oriented structures in the foreseeable future, which I think is really cool because, I mean, how many of us go to work, know that we have X amount of tasks to do and we're done and we're sitting there going, what do we do next? Okay, so as I said before, that this is the first time in history that we have something of technology to bring us all together and to be able to kind of keep moving on in such an epidemic that we're experiencing right now. And realistically, the reason why this is happening is because technology is now advanced enough to be able to supplement what we once could do personally into now the digital realm. It's now accessible to a lot more people than ever before. It's also automated. So a lot of the tasks and things that we used to do and had to do manually, because of specifically like a SaaS model, are more affordable and accessible to automate a lot of the tasks that were done completely manually before, which is a huge, huge deal because this really does mark the next era of technological advances, but also as mankind. If you really think about it, that the entire world is experiencing this, and yet we are trying our best to be able to transition digitally to keep things as normal as possible, which has never been done before and was unable to do before because it was inaccessible to a majority of people around the world. All right, let's see if the sound works. So this is a video, hopefully that I can play the sound, is about Alan Watts. He spoke about this in 1972, and I thought that this was a quite poignant thing to share. So let's see, let me know if you can hear. Give me a thumbs up if you can hear.
Imagine that. You can actually, if there's a beautiful dancer on the television, you'll be able to go up and embrace her. But she won't know you're there, and she won't respond to you. And you'll say, well, that's not very lifelike. Just as they once said, if the photograph doesn't move, it's not very lifelike. If it doesn't talk, it's not very lifelike. They'll next say, if the reproduction in 3 dimensions solid doesn't respond, it's not very lifelike. So they'll have to figure out a technique for doing that. What will they do? Well, I tell you. Sitting in your home, where you're watching the scene on a kind of stage now, not on a screen, there'll be a TV camera observing you. And that TV camera will report back everything you do into a computer. And the computer will so manage each bit of information, that's to say, each tiny little granule unit of information going into the image that you're looking at, that it will immediately decide what is the appropriate response to the approach that you are making to the image. Won't that be great? You know, she may slap you in the face, and she may kiss you. You never know. And so we want to be wired in with electrodes on the brain so that we will actually feel the emotions of the people acting on the stage. And so eventually we will get absolutely perfect reproduction, and we will be able to see that image so vividly that we shall become it. And so the question arises, could that be where we are already?
All right. So I wanted to highlight that because in 1972, Alan Watts was able to talk about and predict the technologies that we are seeking as mankind, and that we are now in that day and age to be able to carry that out. So really the solution that we are working on now and utilizing is robotics or cobotics, collaborative robots, mixed reality over here, and virtual reality, as well as augmented reality. I wanted to highlight this specifically, this picture for virtual reality, that about a month ago, educators in VR actually created a virtual conference and had educators from all over the world actually would be within this digital conference, and everyone had their headsets, their virtual reality headsets, and communicated and interacted as if it was the world today. Now, wanting to focus on collaborative robots specifically, in a sense that today we are seeing the solution of sanitizing robots working in hospitals. AT&T has invested quite an amount of money within the last few months to deploy as many sanitizing robots as possible to a lot of the hospitals. And then specifically in supply chain, because a lot of us are, using Amazon or just trying to do as many deliveries and shipments as possible. To increase efficiency, we are seeing a lot of collaborative robots like you see here that are increasing that productivity and efficiency to get as many items shipped out as possible. So really the benefits to have collaborative robots is to promote task workers into cobot technicians. And really what that means is that, before we can have, as we said, kind of more of the blue collar labor, that someone can be putting items into a box and then walking it over to send it out and ship it. You can have robots replace these types of automated type of tasks over and over again to increase the efficiency. But most importantly, human idle time is decreased, and you have an increase of efficiency by 85%. It's shown within research that if a person is doing one specific task over and over and over again, and that's the one thing that they do, over time, their efficiency will start going down substantially due to human idle time, that the brain can only do so much of the repetitive tasks over and over. So when you replace that with a robot that will have 100% efficiency and will be able to perfectly execute a movement or a type of task perfectly, you're going to increase that efficiency even more so. The other thing too is that it'll increase safety because you'll have less workers, injury rates, but also increasing soft skills within these team members. As I said before, a lot of the labor force will be upskilled into technicians and understanding and learning how to utilize these new skills into higher upper management and afford them a better career advancement as well. Okay, so I wanted to include this slide, companion robots, because as a lot of people are experiencing isolation, there are a substantial amount of our population living by themselves. And the only type of human interaction they really got was at work or in a group setting. And so if you're by yourself 24/7 for months and months on end, and we are completely isolated, this actually is a segment of the market that has been skyrocketing. And something to just say about how technology has advanced to a point that someone like Sophia or little Sophia can be not necessarily a 100% replacement, but somewhat of a supplement to human interaction and to develop more of a relationship type of thing with a robot. Okay, so the power of alternate realities, and this has become my company's specialty, and really focusing on the transformative effects of mixed virtual and augmented reality and what it can really do on the humanistic kind of plane. What you have here is just a virtual reality experience. Over here in the bottom right, we're focusing on haptics and the increase of haptic technology where, and on the bottom left, as you see kind of like a heat print, this is actually measuring and understanding where our eyes really track and where our movement of our eyes and interaction most heavily occurs within a virtual reality experience. Very soon we will have pupil dilation measurement included into the VR headsets. If not, there's already some prototypes already out there. All right, let's see.
Welcome to your cell. You're going to be here for 23 hours a day.
You can be sent to solitary for
disobeying a direct order.
More than 6.2.
Fighting with 90 days extra. Yelling too loud.
Somebody's labeled a gang member.
Any kind of drugs.
Looking at a correction officer. Just looking at him.
Having too many rolls of toilet paper is 90 days extra.
Too many postage stamps.
Eating all of your food.
And it's not uncommon to find somebody who's sentenced to a year and then ends up with 5, 6, 7 years in a pile. After a while, things start to slip.
I find myself floating.
As a psychologist, I can tell you that you are going to undergo many different kinds of reactions, and some of them will be more immediate than others.
So I wanted to showcase this specifically because when you are in a virtual reality setting, such as a jail cell, and not truly understanding or physically experiencing that for yourself, to be able to see, hear, and walk around the confines of something like a jail cell is something to help understand and empathize with the type of programming we have in our rehabilitation centers today. The idea is that when you're in virtual reality, you are really there and your brain is able to biochemically react as if it's the reality that we have and know now. And this is a really powerful tool specifically in situations like this. And I'll go further into the other use cases, but I wanted to kind of share a little bit about what that experience could really be like if you were there. Okay, so the most important thing with virtual reality and mixed realities is that your brain cannot discern the difference between alternate and physical realities. Research has shown that, as I said, that you will have the same physical reactions from your biochemical reactions of your brain to different alternative realities, as it were, here physically. And that's something that's a very powerful tool, specifically when it comes to reversing mental health disorders like PTSD, depression, anxiety, fear. There are specific VR experiences to help people overcome their fears of needles and spiders. It mitigates brain degenerative diseases like Alzheimer's and dementia. There's an amazing company, a good friend of mine here in Dallas. She owns Neuro Rehab VR, and they specifically are a physical and mental therapy tool to help people with brain degenerative diseases. And they have found that it is starting to reverse those physical impacts in their brain, which is phenomenal. So really the use cases are beyond, limitless with this. And really where this is going is, yeah, we're only seeing kind of step one of having these clunky VR headsets or having these big goggle things for mixed reality. Or, the simplistic one now is the augmented reality experiences we have on our phone, which is the most accessible. But our future is where we're converging all these realities together, including our physical realities. And so if we were to experience this type of thing that we're in the future, where we have to isolate all over the world, that's not a problem, because we'll already be interacting in an alternative reality in everything that we do. And so I wanted to kind of give you the idea of what this next iteration is going to be like. And I don't know if you can see the word behind her, but it says that it's really, we're going to be in a multi-dimensional spatial cognition reality. And what that really means is, as we're now experiencing through our screens and through, Zoom, that there is no longer a physical boundary to keep us from one another. And what that really can turn into is kind of like Interstellar, where you have multiple dimensions that actually interact and impact one another, kind of like the butterfly effect. but we in turn can create those dimensions in a virtual reality and actually impact other people's virtual realities through these multiple dimensions. So I love that where we're going technologically is somewhere that only the imagination is really our boundary. And so I wanted to kind of leave you with this notion that we are physically distancing, not socially distancing. We're actually socially connecting through emerging technology. And so I wanted to connect and chat with everyone afterwards about what type of emerging technologies are you utilizing? What are you looking into? What are the challenges you're trying to overcome so that in the future, if something like this to occur, how can you become more mobile and be more humanistic with your experiences and with your employees and your family members? I am here for any and all questions now. So you let me know what you guys have on your mind. Thank you guys.
All right, please type in your questions to room A. If you guys have any questions, and we will.
This will be room A in Slack, right?
In Slack, yes.
Okay, so let's pull up Slack. Let's see here. Slack, room A.
Maybe people are still asleep. Let's see. Oh.
Oh,
I see claps.
Yay! Thank you, everyone. This is awesome. Okay. Woo! I can't wait for happy hour later on, by the way. So Tracy, you got to like tell us all the deets on that.
Wow. If imagination is the only limit, why can't imaginations interact and influence us?
Well, I guess we can use that in a sense of just technology itself. There's actually a huge movement occurring within user and design thinking theory right now, specifically in virtual and augmented reality. And it's really changing the facets of how we even use agile methodology.
We have a question in the Zoom chat. Good talk.
Okay.
What do you think is next, and when will it be here?
So the next thing will be more focused on virtual reality and more accessible headsets that are a lot more affordable and also have a higher refresh rate so that things look a lot more realistic. Then with that, we will have a intuitive haptics that we just use our hands and our body, and we will have the headsets be able to map what's going on without us using like gloves or like a bodysuit or anything like that too.
That's pretty cool. Do you think we're gonna ever exit the uncanny valley in terms of video?
Possibly. I'm not quite sure if we're gonna go that far, but possibly. I know augmented reality is going to be a huge explosion, specifically in marketing experiences. Now with a lot of retail is trying to reinvent themselves. So that's definitely going to be a big push for 2020 and 2021. All right, so we have, what are the evil uses and what should we worry about? So evil uses will really be, at the very beginning, it's definitely going to be on the cybersecurity side. And right now, as we are trying to have, since there's multiple, mixed reality, and so it's the newer term that we're using now is spatial computing. So there's multiple different segmented platforms. As we homogenize the platforms together, that's when you'll be seeing things like, I'm sure a lot of you now know that there's like Zoom bombing that's occurring because of, a lack in the type of security on that side and the encryption. But that's going to be the biggest thing, I think, will be on the security side and to have all the experiences encrypted. And then there was a question about 5G. Let's see here. Will 5G help the responsiveness and speed of mobile internet? Yes. So 5G is definitely going to be a big player in being able to utilize a lot of spatial computing mobile. just because of how much that needs to be stored on the cloud when you're utilizing virtual, augmented, and mixed reality data to be able to interact. 5G is a large necessity in that sense. But right now, the biggest thing is platform and content creation. So the platforms, there's plenty of those. What is really hurting within the industry of it itself is there's not enough content creation, and there's not enough of an easy way to do content creation. You really have to understand and know as a developer how to build 3D assets and renderings and all that kind of stuff. Let's see here. Let me try to move this. Okay, so it says, we're seeing now with this shutdown that not every community has access to tools and internet required to connect. How do you see access improving? This is actually definitely previous experiences of mine. I owned an ed tech company and actually had to work with nonprofits all over the world to provide free data and access to low-income families that were unable to have internet access, as well as provide them tablets, very affordable tablets all over the world. This is going to be something more of government sponsored. So in countries like India, where they already have free data in certain counties and states within India, we're looking more into that smart cities approach as well to provide free internet access. Let's see here. So Tracy asked, how can software engineers best support their business counterparts to create these solutions? How can they educate these counterparts to the limitations in the tech? So awesome question, Tracy. Realistically, on the educating side, or on the educational side, software engineers need to communicate in a way of helping that conversation of not just digital transformation, but leveraging types of technologies like virtual, augmented reality to completely transform and make an experience a lot easier through these different technologies. So I think from there has to be that piece of content that has to be created beforehand. This is something that's really hard for you to talk about without experiencing and say, this is really awesome, I promise. So I think there's going to be definitely that educational threshold is a lot higher, especially if you don't have a virtual reality headset. How do you share that experience with someone that you tell them this is something you really need?
I just want to say,
let's see, how are costs coming down in this space? I know we've had VR headsets and haptics for a while, but they aren't as cheap as mice when they broke though. Extra LCD monitors, etc. Yes, so the costs have gone down substantially. They keep coming down, but as I said before, what the catch-22 right now is driving that market is going to be based on content and more so of useful use cases. So right now there's a lot of personalized or customized virtual reality experiences through gaming, advertising, but now the next forefront is utilizing in manufacturing and supply chain and factory training. So that's kind of the next forefront. Once that hits and kind of saturates that market on training, then you'll start seeing that because of how many people are using it, prices will go down even more. But again, it's going to come down to content. Any progress on smell, taste, and VR since we already have sight, sound, and haptics? That is something that is on the forefront of a few startups. But with the advent of us being in COVID-19, a lot of the funding has kind of halted for the time being. So we'll see if they're going to continue producing that. But there are specific smell cartridges that can be added to the headset. So hopefully they'll be able to make it. Is there any research on dangers of virtual reality and replacing humans with robots? It may become an addiction and prevent people from in in-person social relationships or impact ethics of interaction like moral values? Yes. So with that, there is research to show that there is, first of all, getting used to virtual reality experience. But yes, it is addictive in a sense that your brain doesn't know the difference between physical and virtual reality. This isn't supplementing kind of real life. However, we are moving towards that more and more. And with the moralistic values of it, with the technology behind it, it's really shown as more of a supplementary type of tool as opposed to it being your everyday life. However, as society brings or demands more of this type of technology in use, we will see where that goes. But for the time being, it's really supplemented for the types of things of automating and for interacting in a more humanistic level if we are isolated like we are now. Do you have any insight on how VR will be used by developers and data engineers? So realistically, for VR being used by developers and data engineers, the biggest thing is going to be on wireframing and prototyping. This is something that I work with one of my expert VR developers, and he has taught me a lot in design thinking theory and how everything that is done with brainstorming is actually done in virtual reality. And he does it on multiple different dimensions that interact with each other, and you're standing in the middle of it. So it kind of redefines what your process is to even develop any line of code or develop any type of concept or tool for data engineers and developers. Also, the interactivity that you can share that information all around you, it completely takes that notion away of you now need to interact in a 2D sense into a 3D, 4D type of way. So that's what I really meant by you're really limited by your imagination. And as you are in the forefront of advancing technology, if you're able to completely obliterate the types of barriers that you have of just imagination and how to develop things, as you get into your flow, right, developing different code or interacting with everyone, by doing that in a world that's suspended by different boundaries like dimensions, that's going to take your creativity and to be able to solve different problems a whole nother way. Do you see a greater demand for people with artistic backgrounds as VR becomes more prominent? Absolutely. So what I love about virtual reality is that it is taking artists and turning them into developers now, because this is something that, as I said, there's multiple dimensions you can interact with. There's also different ways that you can take artistic principles and theories and completely flip them upside down and interact with other people in real time and develop something that now not only is it on a tablet, on a screen, but now all around you. And this is something that the next concept of not only marketing, but just interacting in general. As humans, we have, for our time being in history, have focused on a 2D, two-dimensional surface to be able to take ideas and transpose them onto something. Now with virtual reality, our environment is what we consume and is our boundaries for all of our concepts, philosophies, and interactions. So everything that we've done so far, we imagine things in a two-dimensional way. Now that'll be in 3 and 4D, which I think is absolutely mind-blowing. Will Philly ETE be in VR next year? I will try to work with Tracy on that. I think that would be awesome. Hopefully that could be a cool little experience that we can have. How far away are we from fully realized, how far away are we from fully realized Ready Player One scenario, and what is current limitations, hardware, software, interface, or something else? We're quite a ways from Ready Player One. just because, like I said, accessibility, not everyone has a headset, and also content production. But with something like 5G that's being introduced to us via telecom, that's going to be the game changer. Once that kind of permeates and is a kind of our normal use that we have is with 5G data, then we'll start seeing a lot more of these experiences, because even though our brain can't discern between virtual and physical reality, it can tell if something is really grainy or pixelated, that it's something's off. And if our brain sees it as it's something's off, we're not going to fully envelop our entire experience notions into that. So we're close, but we still have got some years on that. What kinds of standards do you see being adopted in the future around AR technology that will protect users from dangerous situations? For example, use of AR while walking or driving. That's a really good question. So by that time, if we are using AR technology that heavily, there will be hopefully built-in protocols for, you know, movement, speed, and that kind of stuff, like you see kind of like your safe driving settings on your phone now. But realistically, I see that by the time that it's so prevalent, we'll already be adopting mixed use or mixed reality, either glasses or something that'll integrate into like our, you know, regular seeing glasses and stuff. So by that time, it'll be turned into more of a mixed reality situation, rather than the, you know, augmented reality type of thing that we have just on one screen. Which, fun fact, when it comes to how many screens that we see and how we only have like one screen at a time, the goal of different companies like Samsung, Apple, Microsoft is for us to have at least 10 different screens that we interact with at the same time throughout our day. So right now we're kind of, we're basically about 2 to 3 screens, right? So if we have our phones with our laptops plus our TV, that's about 3 screens we're interacting. What the goal is to have about 10 screens worth of content and data that we communicate and interact with on a, you know, second by second basis, which I thought was crazy, but that's kind of the technology we're definitely moving towards. Will there be an industry interconnect standard? I hope so. That is definitely the biggest contention right now, is that everything is so segmented on the platform basis that you can't really commingle content and interactions. I think there's going to be kind of the major players kind of thing that's going to happen, probably between Apple, Microsoft, and Facebook with Oculus. A large company that focuses specifically on teleconferencing in virtual reality, Sansar, was actually just sold or bought by another company about 2 weeks ago. So there's some big players kind of diving into the programming and into what the implications of this is now. So we'll see, but yes, there's definitely going to be an interconnect standard that'll be coming up. What are the biggest impediments to VR AR being more widely adopted? Right now it's accessibility and content, in a sense that the interactions are pretty basic to gaming right now, or use cases of manufacturing and training. I would say the bigger thing too would be adopting this in our educational system. That once we can get virtual reality into our educational system, that'll be something that can definitely take away that that structure that we've had, the educational structure we've had for the last 200 years in America. I mean, it's funny because I've seen pictures of schools that were back in the, you know, early 1930s and 40s. They look exactly the same like the classrooms that we have today. So once that starts getting integrated into into education, I think we'll definitely see a huge shift, because now our kids are going to be in it from the beginning, kind of like our Google kids, right, that were born from 99 onward. We may be figuring out how to drop physical barriers, but there are still political language and commercial ones. Any thoughts? Yeah, so, you know, if we think about it on a sociological level, this will be permeating physical barriers. However, once this turns into our normal everyday interaction and we'll be connecting and interacting with people worldwide within virtual reality, we will, in a sense, start moving towards more of a singular type of ethos and methodology, and kind of creating this soup, as we have here in America, into its own type of society and its own type of norms and stuff. Because if you really think about it, the content that is produced and the interactivity that is being done within different platforms. So say that Facebook goes on and it's complete virtual reality experience now, right? And they've turned that into something. Then you have something that Apple does their own thing, right? And so LinkedIn can be its own platform on virtual reality. The thing with that is that content is owned by those platforms. And if that content is owned by those platforms, you don't own any of that stuff. So what really happens is that that's going to be a new age government, right? That's a new place that is going to be governed and censored or manipulated in its own little setting. So I definitely understand where that question is coming from. So it's really important with these types of technologies to also have open source types of platforms as well. That's really, really important, you know, with people that are behind the movement of open source technology. There was a lot of VR hype 25 to 30 years ago, but that fizzled out. What will be different this time around? Well, number one, I think now that we're experiencing COVID-19 and home isolation, this in it of itself will be a huge game changer. And specifically, there is some speculation when it comes to, like, right now, baby boomers that are executives that really rely on human interaction, you know, personal interaction. There's going to be a spike of depression, specifically if we're having a prolonged, you know, home isolation situation happening for those that are not used to technology. So the necessity to be more humanistic in that sense, and the necessity to evolve emotionally, is something that is that's the next forefront, right? So, and also the other thing too is that we've been primed by mobile, right? We've been primed by having our smartphones for about 10 years now, right? And so that is the next instinct from that, is understanding the basic foundations of technology like that, and connecting in that way. First, it's divided us. Now it's going to unite us. Is this something we want, or is this something we need? Would you want to be fully connected 24/7, 365, or is this just another addiction that becomes reality? So I would say that this is something that we eventually will need, especially if we have things like this occurring more frequently. But also the use cases and what we're doing is being able to connect and become more efficient in certain things. And I think for me, the biggest thing is connecting virtual reality with robotics. Once we'll be able to do that, I think that's where we'll be able to increase efficiency. And as I said, upskill a lot of people, especially with the next generations, that most people will be utilizing technology in a way that's a daily native kind of experience. But I definitely see where we are, because we are definitely on that precipice. We're on that cusp right now to be able to now fully connect like that. And that's where everyone here in this conference, that's what we're here to talk about, right? Is what are the skills that you have? What are you bringing to the table to kind of, to really adopt and to try to help share this type of technology with others in a way that's socially responsible, yet pushes that advancement to that next level. And of course, we always have these conversations of, you know, the good guys versus the bad guys. And that's something in all of history, there's always going to be a good guy and a bad guy. So which side are you going to be on? You know, and as the good guys, we want to make sure that we bring this to the table in a socially responsible way and acknowledge that there are humans that are interacting in these different realities. Yes, it can be a different avatar or whatever, but at the end of the day, our world will be now connected completely in a different reality into one plane, which is really cool. Does anyone else have questions? This was really fun. I really like this. It was like rapid fire.
Yeah, this turned out to be pretty awesome. One of the advantages of this technology is that we can actually ask a lot of questions. Because usually we can only ask one or two if nobody wants to carry the microphones for half an hour.
Yes,
this is so
I
great.
love this.
You know,
See?
they're queued up for you, so they're like one after the other. Fantastic. All right,
love
guys.
it.
So thank you so much, Nancy, for doing our keynote. I don't know how to incorporate a clap track into this, but everybody is. Thank you so much for speaking. And our next talk is going to be at 10 o'clock. We're going to post the talks in respective rooms on Slack, and as well as in your Hey Summit schedules. You guys are probably getting spammed with all kinds of Zoom links, but you will find it one way or the other. We don't want you guys to miss anything. So thank you so much, and please enjoy the rest of the conference. Thanks.
And I'll be in Slack in the hallway chatter, so connect with me, and then I'll see you guys later tonight for the happy hour. Enjoy the rest of your day, guys.
Also feel free to create your own channels, guys, if you want to like with the speakers, if you want to do, if you want to get off hallway chatter or something like that.
Okay, so then I'll create a new channel then called Virtual Reality.
Sure. Great.
Okay.
Thank you.
Bye, guys.